Hi, I'm Kim Goodling.
And I'm Anna Goodling.
And we are at Vermont Grandview Farm in Washington, Vermont. And we just wanted to welcome all of you to our farm. Usually we travel to 3 different sheep festivals in the fall where you will see us, and we usually have a couple of our Gotland lambs with us. But this year, since festivals are canceled, we decided to come to you virtually. So who you see here today is Anna is holding Olena, who is one of our lambs that was born in February. And then the other 2 full-grown ewes here are the 2 ewes that traveled to the festivals actually for the past 2 years. They traveled with us as lambs to all 3 festivals, and then again last year. So these 2 older girls were in the show ring at the New York Sheep and Wool Festival last year for their sheep show, and they were in the show ring the year before as well. This is Matilda and this is Marta. So we just wanted to take some time, since you're not able to visit with our sheep at the festivals this year and to ask us questions about the breed. We thought we would do a video and just to tell you some of the things that we love about the Gotland sheep and give you a little bit of the history behind them. Gotland sheep originate in Gotland, Sweden. And in 2003, several sheep breeders decided they wanted to start the breed in the United States. Since you're not able to import live sheep into the United States, they had to enter into an upbreeding program. So they imported semen and began artificially inseminating other sheep breeds in the U.S. So in your first generation, you'll take 100% Gotland semen, artificially inseminate a ewe, and the offspring are 50%. The next year you take that 50% Gotland ewe and artificially inseminate her, and her offspring are 75%. So you can see over time you slowly begin to build the breed, and that's how this breed has been established in the U.S. Currently we have sheep in the U.S. who are over 98% Gotland, so they're pretty high. What breeders are working on now is beginning to really refine the breed within their own flocks. Even though they've been using semen from 100% Gotland sheep, a lot of breeders are still finding some of the traits from those foundation ewes are coming out in their breeding programs. So right now, among a lot of the breeders in the U.S., there is a real push to refine their flocks so that they're getting the true Swedish Gotland standard within their own flock. So there are several different things that the Swedish people are looking for when they're breeding their Gotland sheep. And on Gotland, they take their breeding very seriously. All of their lambs are put through an evaluation system, and it evaluates them on the different characteristics that they're looking for. And they're doing this because they only want to use the top lambs in their own breeding programs. So some of the traits that they're looking for are what you see here, which is a variety in gray. Gotland sheep will range from pale silver all the way to a dark, almost a black charcoal in color. And so they're looking for uniformity in this color from their front to their back, as well as from side to side. Now, as with many other sheep breeds, in the Gotland breed, as they get older, their color can change. And often what you will see, which these girls, the 2 older ewes are 2 years old and 2.5 years old. And they have really retained their color quite well, but what is common for you to see in a Gotland sheep is they will begin to fade color on the sides and keep a dark streak down their spine. These 2 girls, as you can see, have really maintained their color kind of unusually well. But it is very common for you to see as they get older for them to turn lighter on their sides. When the Swedish are evaluating their Gotland sheep, they're evaluating them at just 3 months of age. And it's the consistency and color at 3 months of age which is so important to them. The other things that they're looking at is the curl. And again, they want to see consistency and curl from their shoulder to their rear and from side to side. So when they're evaluating them, they're really looking at the curl as it is next to their skin, and really looking from front to back to be sure that that curl is consistent. They also like to see a lot of luster in the fleece, and they want to see that being consistent as well. One of the traits that breeders in the United States are trying to eliminate from their flocks is what's called crosshairs. When you look at a Gotland fleece and you part the wool so that you see the wool next to the skin, sometimes you'll see tiny crosshairs that are intertwined between the curls. This is not a desirable trait. What you want to see are individual curls that will fall and kind of bounce on their own when you rub your hands through their fleece. Matilda here has a few crosshairs, but not very many. If you have a lot of crosshairs that intertwine in between the little ringlets that hang, then they won't fall individually, it will fall more as a mass. So these crosshairs are not desirable, and that's one of the traits that breeders today are trying to eliminate from their flock. Another trait which breeders are working on is to make sure that the ewes and the rams have all black heads and all black legs. You want Gotland sheep have a clean face with no wool on it. It should be all black. Matilda has a teeny tiny white spot on top of her head, and then she has black legs. The white spot on top of the head is accepted into the breed standard in the U.S. as long as it does not take up more than 30% of her head. Even in Gotland, my husband and I have traveled there a couple times, and even in the flocks there, you will see some of the flocks getting some white on their heads. But in the U.S., and particularly in my own flock, I'm working hard to try and stick with more of the classic all black head, though this little tiny white spot is okay. The only problem is if she's bred to a ram who also has a white spot, it tends to throw lambs with even larger white spots. So Anna, why don't you talk to them a little bit about the size and kind of the general disposition that you see in a Gotland sheep?
Sure. So as you can see, Marta and Matilda here are about full grown, right? They're not going to get too much bigger, and they're pretty small sheep. The adult Gotland ewe tends to be between 120 and 150 pounds, and the rams are usually 160 to 180 pounds, which is on the smaller side for sure. This little girl right here is Olena. She's one of our lambs from this year, from earlier this spring, and you can see she's getting up there in size. She's almost the same size as these two are.
But in general, I usually find in my flock it takes them a full 2 years to get full grown. So these girls are full grown. Olena has a little bit more growth to do, though she is quite big right now.
Yeah. So in terms of disposition, Gotland sheep are some of the friendliest that I've ever met for sure. You can see these three are just hanging out with us. They want to be as close to humans as they can and get all the attention. If I stop petting her, she will probably get mad about that and ask for more.
And that's not because we have trained them to be this way. You know, certainly you can train almost any sheep to be, you know, very attentive to you and enjoy being with you.
But I mean, these guys are friendly from day one. there are times during lambing season when I'll come out in the barn and we've got all the little, week-old lambs or less running around, and you sit down on the floor and they all pile onto your lap. They just want to be as close to humans as they can. They're naturally very curious and very interested and very friendly, and really enjoy a lot of attention. They'll wag their tails if they're really happy, like Matilda here is enjoying a good back scratch. Get the little tail wag going. But they love to be near their shepherd. They love to be with humans and close to people.
And since Anna did point out the tail, that was something I forgot to say, that Gotland sheep naturally have a short tail, which is really nice.
Yeah.
It's very short from day one. It has very little wool growth on it. The wool on the tail is only on the top part, not on the under part. So these tails were not docked. This is how they are at birth.
Another thing about Gotlands in terms of their size is when we take these guys into the show ring, they often have a hard time competing because they're in the ring with other long wool breeds like Romneys, which are much larger. And since they're still a relatively new breed to the US, oftentimes judges at show rings don't know a whole lot about the Gotland breed, and so they can have a difficult time judging them in comparison to a Romney, which is much larger and has a different build. They're much squarer, whereas a Gotland is much more petite with their thin legs that are clean, no wool on the faces. There's just a very different style of body here.
Right. They have a very delicate body style. And sometimes when we've been in the show ring, the judge is using words like robust and square in the hind quarters, and all these words that don't even apply to the Gotland breed really. So when we've taken them to shows, I've been really proud of how they've done. We've gotten third place ribbons, and what else?
Gotten fourth and fifth a couple times.
Fourth and fifth as well. And that's when they're in a show ring with like 15 other sheep, all of these, large breeds like Romneys and Lincolns and Border Leicesters. The average weight on my ewes is about 125 to 150. The rams are a little bit larger. I would say our rams can be anywhere from like 165 close to 200 pounds.
Yeah.
A couple of them have been quite big, but I think the average for Gotland rams is more like 165 to 180 is more common for them.
So on Gotland Island in Sweden, the Gotland sheep are a dual purpose breed. They're mostly raised as pelt sheep or for their meat. So that's the biggest
market for them.
That's
the word. They're as Anna said, they're mostly raised for their pelts. The meat is sold throughout Europe, but it's the pelts that are so desirable, and the color that they really want to have in a pelt is that medium kind of blue-gray color.
Yeah.
You do see other colors in their pelts as well as in their flocks, but it's that blue-gray color that sells the best for them. The women in Sweden take these pelts and they make amazing things with them. They're not just used as a rug or a chair covering, but they're making coats and vests and hats. They upholster with them. They just make amazing things with these pelts. Gotland sheep have the ability to really adapt to the climate where they're raised. And a good example is to compare our farm with some of the farms out west. In Vermont, as you can imagine, we have some very cold weather. We tend to be under snow from the beginning of November until sometimes till the end of April, and we get very cold temperatures. In the winter time, the Gotland sheep do not grow their curls. So what I tend to see is I will shear them in the fall, and while the weather is still mild, they'll grow their curls. Then when the weather gets cold, they stop growing curls, and you'll see a distinct line in their fleece. and underneath they begin to grow a white fuzzy undercoat. And it's that white fuzzy undercoat that keeps them warm. The undercoat doesn't grow very long, maybe anywhere from 1 inch to 2 inches through the course of the winter. So when I shear them in the early spring, that winter fleece is actually pretty short. But as you can see now, these girls have been through a whole growing season of growing their curls, and it's in the warm weather when they grow their curls, and soon they will be shorn. I usually try and shear them no later than the end of October, and I will get anywhere from like 5 to 7 inches of curl off of them. I know shepherds who are raising Gotland sheep in much milder climates, and they're finding that they do grow their curls year-round in those milder temperatures. So to me, it just shows what an amazing breed this is and how they're able to really adapt to the environment in which they live in. So that's about it. Those are the basics about living with Gotland sheep here in Vermont, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, we really miss being able to talk with each one of you face to face and see you and give you an opportunity to get your hands on our sheep this year at all the festivals and shows. We do offer farm stay vacations, and right now Vermont is open to tourism with a few restrictions. So if anyone would like to come to the farm for a farm stay, I will definitely give you some one-on-one time with the sheep. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email or give me a call. I'm more than happy to answer questions that you might have about the breed.
See you next time.
And hopefully we will see you at the festivals in 2021.